Hi there everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jennifer Kirk, welcoming you up here to the loft on Weir Yard. It's really great to see you, I hope I find you well. And today, well, we're going to be doing something a little bit different in answer to questions that I frequently get asked on this channel. And that is, what ready-to-run locomotives do I have suitable for certain railway companies in my collection? I think a lot of you are really interested to see what models are or have been available ready to run in some of those really pretty pre-grouping liveries. So today it's the turn of the first of these, and I'm going to be looking into the South Eastern and Chatham Railway Company. Now, one of my first ever ready to run pre-grouping liveried locomotives was actually from this particular railway company. Now, I'm not counting the models that were available before we got these high definition, high detailed models coming through in the late 1990s. So I know that there have been things like the Hornby Caledonian Railway Pug in the Cali Blue, but I'm not really counting that. Instead, I'm going to be looking at the super detailed models and the liveries that they have come to the market in. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of the models of the South Eastern and Chatham Railway. When it comes to the first South Eastern and Chatham Railway locomotive that I'm going to show you that has been made available ready to run, I'm going to turn to the C-Class from Bachmann. This, number 689 in the Austerity Grey, was a Collectors Club special. In fact, it was one of the fastest selling Collectors Club specials and did particularly well. That means that if you want to try and get this now, well, it's long since sold out. It's also the case that when they do crop up on eBay, they do tend to go for a lot of money. Now you might think that that's pretty gouging, and in some respects it is. But if people are prepared to pay it, that's just how supply and demand works. It is a livery that is quite simple, but I like it. This austere grey is, well, just something that really does highlight the detail on any locomotive. And I think that's one of the reasons that I really do like it. It's not too busy, so you don't have lining and other different splashes of colour which hide all of the rivet detail. The C-Class has been with us now for quite some time, so compared to more modern releases, it's maybe starting to show its age sooner than you might have expected, but it is a sterling performer. It's got pickups on all 6 driving wheels, but also on the tender wheels too, and there's plenty of space in that tender for a sound installation if that's the route that you want to go down. The next locomotive is coincidentally the first ready-to-run locomotive that I'm aware of that was released to the market in substantial numbers in a pre-grouping livery. This was part of the CADA anniversary set, and this involved having 2 of the then comparatively new models of the N-Class 260 Mogul, one in Southern Railway livery and then the other in this very eye-catching Austerity Grey. It was in fact the first time that I saw a South Eastern and Chatham Railway liveried locomotive on the market, and I can remember looking at the wooden case that this came in my local model shop and thinking it was quite expensive for the time. I seem to recall a price tag of £80 or £90, which now for 2 locomotives you'd snap the hand off and take it. I actually ended up buying this second hand, and I got it for, well, slightly more than that, but still a modest £120, and actually I've been really pleased with the pair. Some of the earlier N-classes from Bachmann did suffer from the problems with either motors that burnt out, or actually there was a spate of mazout rot on some of the running plates on some of the releases. Luckily, none of the 3 examples of the N-class that I have in my collection have been so afflicted, and actually DCC fitted with a hard wire of a 6-pin decoder in there. There's just enough space for it. It is a very tight fit. I've actually found that this has been quite a good performer on my layout. As number 810, the N-class were quite a latecomer to the South Eastern and Chatham Railway, appearing as they did pretty much at the end of that railway company's existence. So a number of these locomotives were actually turned out straight in the Monsell Green because they weren't completed until they were technically a Southern Railway owned locomotive. But the first few did get this austerity grey, and I think it particularly suits them. The next locomotive I'm going to look at is also the newest on the market. This is the D-Class, which was a collaboration between Rails of Sheffield and Daypol. Now, there are 3 South Eastern and Chatham Railway versions of this locomotive that have been offered in the first batch, and of these 3, I only have this single example. I chose the austerity grey with its scraped back beading because there's just something about this livery that appeals to me. I guess again, it's the fact that it really does show up the detail of any model that it is applied on. It's quite simple, not too fussy, and I actually find myself liking that on a model, but the scraped back beading really is something quite special on this. It just adds that little something, and I guess it's probably one of the reasons that the South Eastern and Chatham Railway management turned a blind eye to crews just scraping that grey paint off to reveal the brass beading. This model is the only one of all of the South Eastern and Chatham Railway models that I've shown you today that comes with a Next 18 decoder socket, and when we did the review on this model I showed you that actually it's also one of the easiest models to DCC fit because of the removable smokebox door and the fact that you can just pull out that plug-in daughter board and fit the decoder on there. There's also enough room for the stay alive that we showed in the fitting, and there is an option for this with factory fitted sound which fits in there neatly as well. The detail on this model is exquisite, but you'd probably expect that on a model that costs nearly £200 and is, at the time of recording this, the newest locomotive to make its way onto the market. And actually I have to say I am not disappointed with this model. I've been really pleased with it, and I'm quite glad to add it to my fleet. And as a pre-grouping liveried locomotive of the South Eastern and Chatham Railway, it does of course therefore make it onto this list. Now the next 2 locomotives I'm going to be showing you are these. On the left I'm going to deal with this one first. This is the H-Class from Hornby, and 2 versions of this in this very pretty livery have been released, both of which have sold out reasonably quickly, although the version that was produced for the Collectors Club did seem quite strangely to hang around a little bit longer. Both of them are resplendent in pretty much the same livery, the only difference being the running numbers, with the Collectors Club example being the preserved example at the Bluebell Railway. One thing to note about this is the South Eastern and Chatham Railway crest that's there on the tank sides, and this was particularly well reproduced on this, and I think we did touch on that when we did the review of this model. The dome as well is of a polished metallicized finish, and it really is quite shiny, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on to some of the later models, because in real life these shiny domes did bring in problems all of their own in terms of sunlight reflecting off them and dazzling the crew trying to see where they were going. The safety valve bonnet there is not actually metallicized in the same way, and in some respects the painted finish on that does contrast quite markedly with the dome, but I'm going to let that slide because actually with the steam coming up through those safety valves, the brass would very quickly tarnish and would require a lot of scrubbing to bring it back up to that really shiny finish. So it's not actually beyond belief that these locomotives could have had a difference in the brass finish in that way for those reasons. Running qualities of this locomotive are fairly reasonable, but as an 044 wheel arrangement it does suffer a little bit in terms of pulling capacity. However, I've really enjoyed having this on my layout, and should the opportunity arise to buy the other example, I think I might actually seriously consider it. The next example is one which is quite interesting. This is one of the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway Terriers, but it's one that was sold out of service and found its way to the South Eastern and Chatham Railway for use on a particular branch line. Resplendent in this slightly simplified livery, this is the Hornby version of the model. Now, there's quite a history with this. Rails and Dapol also produced this livery of this locomotive, because there was only one on the South Eastern and Chatham Railway, in their version of the model. There's also a third version of this Terrier, and that was produced from the older ex-Dapol tooling, and Hornby actually brought it out not long before they announced that they were doing this completely uprated version, which is one of the many reasons that led people to wonder whether actually Hornby changed their mind last minute about bringing out this all-new retooled model, because otherwise it doesn't really make sense to produce a model of the previous tooling in this livery only to supersede it within the space of, I think it was no more than 18 months. In fact, that older version was still on the shelves on some of the smaller model shops, even when this hit the shelves as well, at pretty much the same RRP. Whilst I've heard it said that in real life the H-Class may have got the austerity grey livery, I've not seen or heard of any comment as to whether the Terrier also received this livery, and I'm going to guess that it probably did survive in this livery right through into Southern Railway ownership. For the next three locomotives, I'm returning to the C-Class, and this particular example here, number 592, is one which actually set the model world alight and was something of a sleeper hit for Bachmann. It probably still stands as being the fastest selling out of a main range, that is not limited edition model, in that it pretty much got stripped off the shelves within a matter of days of it reaching them. I know a lot of people were disappointed in not being able to get hold of one of these, and certainly at one point they were commanding prices in excess of £550 on eBay. I think the prices have settled down since, but certainly those heady heights did inspire Bachmann to produce the same livery a little while later, possibly to cash in on any perceived unspent demand for the model. This particular version, though, has not sold quite as well, or it may be the case that Bachmann produced rather more than that first initial production run, which, if rumours are to be believed, there were only 300 of these produced by Bachmann in the first place, actually far less than the 500, which was the normal number for a limited edition run from the same marque. In fact, these can still be found on some model shops' shelves, and if you want to go for this ornate SECR livery on a C-Class, it's certainly one well worth picking up. As you can see with both of these models, they don't feature the same metallicized finish on that dome, but nonetheless I do quite like that painted finish. The final locomotive in my collection in South Eastern and Chatham Railway livery is yet another C-Class. That's right, I've got 4 of these in South Eastern and Chatham Railway livery, but this particular livery was a bit of a shelf queen. It was brought out not that long after that really ornate original release of the C-Class in SECR livery. However, it's the slightly toned down version with the cheaper lining, which was actually produced by the South Eastern and Chatham Railway. With less lining, it was a lot less expensive to paint this up because everything had to be hand painted back then. And the dome was painted in the same colour as the rest of the locomotive. Now, I alluded to this earlier on, but the reason was because of complaints from crews that they were being dazzled in bright sunlight by light reflecting off that highly polished brass dome, so it does seem to have been a sensible precaution. However, this livery did linger for quite some time, and I was able to and ah for in the region of 6 months before I bought it and added it to my collection, because they did linger on the shelves. That said, it is a sterling performer. The Bachmann C-Class really does turn in a reliable performance, regardless of which livery that you have, so it is really nice to have this in the collection nonetheless. I nearly forgot this little diminutive locomotive, and actually it's probably the pride of the SECR fleet. Aside from the H-Class, which nonetheless was still a mainline passenger locomotive, the P-Class was a bit of maid of all work. Not really quite as successful as some of the other classes that were out there, but by quirk of fate, a good number of these have survived into preservation. Hatton's brought this model to the market. When they announced the P-Class, everybody thought that the really ornate South Eastern and Chatham Railway versions, of which they produced it was either 2 or 3, there was certainly quite a few of them in the first production run, this was almost added to the range as an afterthought. A sleeper hit, it was the first to sell out. In fact, I reviewed this model, and I'd like to think that in some small part my review of this model did help to it being the sleeper hit that it was and selling out so much quicker than any other livery version. Subsequently, Hatton's did bring out more of these in some other interesting SECR liveries suitable for the Rail Operations Division period, but actually I never quite got round to buying any more of them, and it's a bit of a shame because this is a faultless performer, a very sure-footed locomotive. I was really pleased to add it to my collection. So here we have my full ready-to-run South Eastern and Chatham Railway locomotive collection. It's quite a diverse amount of motive power, but now you can see just why so many modellers for so long have been crying out for suitable rolling stock to run with them. We're still lacking a decent brake van, but at least we've got those birdcage coaches from Bachmann in a variety of different South Eastern and Chatham Railway liveries, and also forthcoming from Hatton's, we've got those Genesis coaches in 4 and 6 wheel variants, which we did review on this channel, and I'm very much looking forward to. As of the time of recording, Hornby have yet to step up to the plate and release a South Eastern and Chatham Railway version of their 4 and 6 wheel coaches, but I'm absolutely certain that in time they will come as well. There are a number of wagons too. Rapido Trains have announced some open wagons which will really look great with some of these locomotives. We also have the 3D printed vans from Rails of Sheffield in conjunction with Daypole, and they really do look the part in their earlier South Eastern and Chatham Railway guise. There are of course some other wagons. From Hornby we have a 3-plank open, which is actually a really great base model, and one of the few base models up until that point which had been produced in a style that was actually suitable for pre-1923. From Bachmann we also got hold of a 3-wagon set, although slightly disappointingly these were the post-1923 wagons with a pre-1923 livery on them. They were well received nonetheless. And that brings to a close this video about South Eastern and Chatham Railway ready-to-run locomotives in my collection. Well, I hope you really enjoyed today's video. If you've got any ideas about another railway company that you might like to see what I've got in my collection, and also a little talk over what is or was available ready to run, then do leave a comment in the comment section down below. I do enjoy reading every single one of them. Don't forget as well that we've got merchandise available you can see down in the description area of this video, and you can pick up your own t-shirts, hoodies, die-cut stickers, and also don't forget my books are still available through the All Mouse Media website, and at the time of filming there are still a few wagons left that can be ordered through Rails of Sheffield for that Jenny Monday Club exclusive Acura scale release, so do get your skates on if you want one of those because they are proving really popular. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying tickle that like button, share this video, let others know about it, and if you haven't already done so, do consider subscribing. and I'll see you next time. You take great care of yourself. Happy modelling. Bye for now. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Peter Bolton, Brian and Dorothy Mudd, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Sparky107107, George Botterini, Chris Moss, Robert Steers, MD of San Juan Model Company and Grantline Products, Sam Yates, Dale Williams, John N. from NC, NYMRish, Jonathan Foster, Peter, Graham Foster, Clifford Ison, Larry W. Grant, NI Railways 4000 class, Ian Coulson, and Alan Dickerson. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.